I first met Amelia on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. It was one of those days where the sky felt heavy and the world seemed too quiet for the amount of noise in my head. I had just left an unproductive meeting at work and decided to stop by my usual cafe for a coffee to clear my mind. As soon as I stepped in, I saw her. Sitting in the far corner of the cafe, hunched over a laptop with a pile of resumes and job applications in front of her, Amelia looked like she was drowning in uncertainty. I could tell by the furrowed brow, the way her hand trembled slightly as she typed. There was something about her, the way she carried herself despite the chaos around her, that drew me in. She was clearly struggling, but she didn't ask for help. She wasn't one to beg or plead. It was something in her eyes, determination yet tinged with doubt, that made me feel like I had to do something. I took my coffee to a table near hers, hoping she wouldn't notice me staring. But after a few minutes, I couldn't ignore the fact that she was still trying and failing to make something work. She sighed heavily, leaning back in her chair, before picking up the resume in front of her and glaring at it like it owed her an apology. I couldn't take it anymore. I stood up and walked over to her table. "Hey," I said, my voice coming out softer than I intended. "Need a hand?" She looked up, startled, blinking in surprise. Then, after a moment, she smiled awkwardly. Yeah. I'm just," she motioned to the mess of papers, "trying to land a job. Seems impossible, though." "I get that," I said, pulling out the chair across from her. "What kind of position are you looking for?" "Anything, really," she shrugged, clearly frustrated. "I just don't have the right connections. They all want someone with more experience, but how am I supposed to get experience if no one gives me a chance?" Something about her words clicked with me. I'd been in her shoes before, and I knew how hard it was to break in, especially when you didn't have the right connections or the backing of people who could help you along the way. "Well," I said, after a beat, "I work at a company that's hiring right now. I can help you out. Get your foot in the door, at least. You've got the drive. That's the most important thing." She looked at me, surprised. "Really? You'd do that?" "Yeah," I nodded. "I think you deserve a shot." We spent the next half hour going over her resume, tweaking it to make it more appealing to potential employers. I could see the fire in her eyes as she grew more confident. She had ambition, that was clear. And soon, it was obvious that she wasn't just struggling. She was determined to rise above it all. "You know, I really appreciate this," she said, smiling. "I didn't think anyone would actually help. Most people just look past me." I shook my head. "Anyone who can't see your potential is missing out. You've got everything it takes to make it." She laughed softly, but there was a hint of sadness in her eyes. "Thanks, it means a lot." "Don't mention it," I said, leaning back in my chair. "I like helping people who deserve it." A few weeks later, I helped Amelia get an interview at the company I worked for. She landed the job, and it wasn't long before I saw her grow within the company. She wasn't just getting by, she was excelling. We continued working together, often late nights, both driven by our shared ambition. As the months passed, something started to change between us. I tried not to overthink it, but the way she looked at me sometimes, it was different. She would laugh at my jokes, her eyes lighting up when I talked about my future plans. We became closer. It was hard not to notice the chemistry between us. Still, I told myself, don't ruin the friendship. She was ambitious, and I didn't want to be the one holding her back. She had potential. I was proud of her, but inside I couldn't help wondering if she noticed me for more than just my help. If maybe, just maybe, she saw me as more than a stepping stone. I didn't know it then, but that was just the beginning. Amelia was about to make a decision that would change everything for both of us. It wasn't going to be about the job anymore. It was going to be about us and how far she was willing to go to get what she wanted. The weeks passed, and Amelia was thriving in her new role. It wasn't surprising. She had the drive, the smarts, and the ambition that could put anyone to shame. I was proud of her, really, but there was something gnawing at me as I watched her rise. While she was soaring, I seemed to be stuck on the same rung of the corporate ladder, struggling to climb higher. I tried not to let it bother me. After all, I told myself she deserved it. I was happy for her. She worked hard, and I had no reason to feel threatened by her success. Yet every time I saw her come in early and leave late, her mind focused on the next big project, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was slipping between us. We'd spend less and less time together, and our conversations started to feel more like business meetings than anything personal. I tried to talk to her about it once, over a quiet dinner, but Amelia just brushed it off, smiling that smile she gave when she was too focused on something else. Liam, don't worry about it. I'm just working hard. You know how it is. We both want to succeed, right? I nodded, but even as I agreed, I felt a distance growing between us that I couldn't explain. It wasn't that she was intentionally pulling away, but she was changing. Then came the day I'll never forget. It was a regular Monday morning. I walked into the office, coffee in hand, expecting another routine day. I was a little late, but that was normal for me. I was still settling in after a rough meeting the week before. As I passed by the conference room, I overheard a few people murmuring excitedly. I paused, trying to make out what they were saying. "She's got the CEO's right-hand spot," one of them said, voice full of awe. I didn't need to hear more. I stepped inside the room to see Amelia standing there, smiling like she had just won a war. She was surrounded by a few people from HR and upper management. I couldn't breathe for a moment, my heart sinking in my chest. This was the position I'd been eyeing for years. And now she had it. "Amelia!" I called out, my voice a little too sharp. She turned around, her eyes lighting up when she saw me. "Liam, didn't you hear? I've been promoted to the CEO's right-hand position." I couldn't smile. I couldn't feel proud. "Congratulations," I muttered, my voice hollow. Her excitement dimmed just a little when she saw my reaction. "Are you okay?" I nodded quickly, forcing a smile. "Yeah, just surprised, I guess." "Surprised? It's a great opportunity. You should be happy for me, Liam." I wanted to be happy. I wanted to be the guy who could cheer her on without any jealousy. But that day, I couldn't hide what I was feeling. I wasn't proud of myself for not being able to feel happy for her. The room seemed to spin around me as I nodded. "Yeah, I'm happy. Just a little shocked." The others congratulated her, but I couldn't focus. My mind was too consumed with the thought that Amelia had climbed higher than I had ever hoped to. She had surpassed me, and I wasn't sure how to feel about it. Later that evening, I sat in our shared apartment, staring at the empty glass of wine in front of me. Amelia had gone out with colleagues to celebrate, and I was left alone to think. I ran my fingers through my hair and let out a long, frustrated sigh. Was this what I had helped her get to? Was this how she would repay me by rising higher, leaving me behind? I couldn't even bring myself to open the bottle of wine I'd bought for us. I wasn't in the mood to celebrate. When she finally came back, I didn't ask about the celebration. I didn't even say congratulations like I had intended. Instead, I just asked, "What now, Amelia?" She looked at me, taken aback. "What do you mean?" "I've got the position I wanted. This is everything I've worked for." I swallowed hard. "And what about us? What about our time together?" "I barely see you anymore," she softened. "Liam, I'm still here. I'm just busy. We'll figure it out." I knew she was right. She was busy, but I wasn't sure where I fit into her new life anymore. I wasn't sure if I was part of her success or if I had just become someone she'd left behind in her climb to the top. That night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't stop thinking about it. How had we gotten here? She had everything: ambition, success, recognition, and I had what? A job I wasn't passionate about? A growing sense of distance between us? Maybe she hadn't left me behind intentionally, but it sure felt like it. I don't know what I expected, but it wasn't this. I walked into the office like any other day, half distracted, already thinking about the meeting I had later. But when I passed by the CEO's office, I saw her, Amelia, laughing, leaning into Marcus, her boss, like they were in on some private joke. It took me a second to register what I was seeing. Marcus was the CEO of the company, the man who had helped Amelia rise faster than anyone expected. But it wasn't the fact that she was talking to him that threw me off. It was the way they looked together. The way she laughed, genuinely, without a care in the world, her eyes alight with something I hadn't seen in a while. She hadn't looked like that with me in months. I stood there for a moment, my heart pounding in my chest, trying to make sense of it. Amelia caught sight of me standing by the door and froze. For a second, it felt like everything stopped. The air between us grew thick. "Liam," she said, her voice suddenly tight, a smile trying to hold up the weight of something she didn't want me to see. "What are you doing here?" I could feel the anger rising in me, but I kept it down. I took a deep breath and walked into the room. Marcus looked up, smiling in that charming way he always did, like he was always a few steps ahead of everyone. "Liam," he greeted, his voice smooth as ever. "Everything going well?" I didn't respond to him. My eyes were locked on Amelia. "What's going on here?" I asked, my voice a little colder than I intended. Her smile faltered for a second, then returned as if nothing had changed. "Nothing, just discussing some work stuff," she said, avoiding my gaze. "You know how it is, I didn't buy it." My mind raced, memories flashing of how things used to be between us. I had supported her, helped her get her job, watched her grow. But now there was something different about her. Something that felt distant. "Amelia," I said, taking another step toward her, ignoring the tension in the room. "What's going on? Why are you acting like this? Like you don't even care anymore?" She shifted uncomfortably in her seat, and I could see it. The flicker of guilt in her eyes, quickly masked by an indifference I didn't recognize. "I'm sorry, Liam. It's just that I've moved on. From everything. From you." Her voice cracked a little at the end, but she quickly recovered. "You've done enough here. It's time for you to step back." Those words hit me harder than anything she'd said before. "Step back?" I repeated, my voice quiet, disbelieving. "You want me to step back?" Amelia nodded, her gaze sliding away from mine. "Yes, you've helped me, and I'll always appreciate that. But this is my future now." "I've made choices. We both have." I felt the anger stir inside me, a heat rising up my chest. "Choices? You mean you've chosen him, haven't you?" I pointed to Marcus, my words coming out sharper than I intended. Marcus held up his hands in mock surrender. "Hey, I'm just here to help," he said, leaning back in his chair. "Nothing personal. Nothing personal?" I said, turning my gaze back to Amelia. "You've chosen your career, your ambition, your new life. But where does that leave me, huh? The guy who helped you every step of the way?" She looked at me then, really looked at me. For the first time in a long time, I saw something real in her eyes. But it wasn't love or care or even regret. It was just emptiness. "I didn't mean for it to be this way," she whispered, looking down at her hands. But the words were too little, too late. But Marcus offered me everything I wanted. "More than you could." The words pierced me like a knife, twisting deep. "So that's it? You left me for him? Because he offered you what you wanted?" Amelia didn't answer. She just looked away as if she couldn't face me anymore. Her silence said it all. I had been a stepping stone, nothing more. A tool she used to get to where she was. And now that she had what she wanted, she was throwing me away. "Why didn't you fight for us?" I asked, the question hanging in the air. "I thought I could survive without you," she said quietly, her voice barely a whisper. "I thought it was better this way. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think." The betrayal felt like a weight in my chest, crushing me. She was choosing her success over me. She had chosen him. I turned on my heel and left, slamming the door behind me. I didn't care that it echoed in the empty hallway. I didn't care that I was leaving without any answers. I didn't care about anything anymore. I walked straight to the nearest bar. I didn't want to think about what had just happened. I didn't want to think about how the woman I once loved had left me for the very thing I had helped her achieve. I was angry. But beneath the anger, something else was starting to grow. Something colder, something darker. I wasn't going to let her get away with this. She'd left me behind, but I would make sure she realized the cost of her choices, and I would make her pay for it. I spent the next few days in a daze, trying to come to terms with everything that had happened. The betrayal, the lies. The realization that everything I thought we had built together was nothing more than a stepping stone for Amelia. But as the days dragged on, something inside me hardened. I couldn't just let this go. Not when she had taken everything I gave her and tossed it aside like it meant nothing. I was done being passive. I was done feeling like a victim. If she thought she could walk all over me and move on with her life, then I had news for her. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot, I started small. Using the connections I had left in the company, I quietly began digging into everything I could about Marcus and Amelia. The emails, the meetings, the deals they'd made, the ones that never made it to public record. Everything. I wasn't going to just expose her to the world. I was going to make her feel the weight of what she'd done to me and to us. I spent hours poring through documents, gathering information. Marcus had always been slippery, but even he wasn't untouchable. He had his secrets, and I was determined to find them. Days passed, and I started seeing the cracks in their perfect little world. Amelia had become more and more involved with Marcus. I noticed the way she looked at him, how she laughed a little too easily, how she deferred to him at every opportunity. What bothered me most was how Marcus manipulated her. He was using her, using everything she had gained to further his own agenda. And she didn't even see it. I watched them from afar, how he subtly controlled every decision she made. How, whenever they were together, she seemed to lose her sense of self. I could see it now. She had become a pawn in his game just like I had been. Only now he had more to offer her. More than I ever could. The more I watched, the more I realized just how much I wanted to make them both pay. But it wasn't going to be with violence. That wasn't me anymore. It was going to be with the truth. I would expose them, slowly, carefully, in a way they would never see coming. I knew what I had to do. One night, as I was sitting alone in my apartment, staring at my laptop, I felt something shift inside me. My pulse quickened as I began to put the pieces together. This wasn't just about revenge. This was about showing them that I was no longer the person they could walk all over. I wasn't the guy who just helped people get ahead while they used me. I was someone who could take back control. I was someone who would force them to face the consequences of their... Like I was finally in control. There was this nagging voice in the back of my mind, one I couldn't shake. Was this really going to bring me peace? Was exposing them going to make everything right? Or just digging my I started to felt like hours, my thoughts racing. Part of me wanted to stop, to forget this whole thing, to let it go. But another part of me, probably the part that had been hurt so deeply, wanted to see them fall. I wanted to watch as their perfect world came crashing down around them, just like mine had. I shook my head, rubbing my eyes, trying to clear my thoughts. I wasn't sure what the right choice was anymore. Revenge had consumed me and I was letting it. I knew it wasn't healthy. I knew it wasn't what I wanted, but I couldn't stop myself. The truth was, I didn't know who I was anymore. The man who had helped Amelia, the man who had believed in her, he was gone. And in his place was a person who wasn't afraid to use the power he had to make her, and Marcus, feel the sting of their betrayal. But was it worth it? Was it worth losing myself in the process? Was exposing them going to heal the wounds they had caused, or would it only make everything worse? I closed the laptop and leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. I was stuck between two choices. Let this go and move on, or take my revenge and risk losing everything I had worked for. Both options felt like a betrayal. Both options felt like I was choosing something that would haunt me forever. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of my own anger and frustration. What was the point of all this? Was I really going to let them win by letting them control my every decision even now? Was I going to let my need for revenge be the thing that dictated my life? I stood up and walked to the window, looking out over the city. In the distance, I saw the lights of the skyscrapers reflecting in the water. It looked peaceful. It looked like a place where anything was possible, but I couldn't find peace in the chaos inside me. For the first time in weeks, I didn't know what the right choice was. All I knew was that I couldn't keep living like this. I couldn't keep letting the past control me. Something had to change, but for now, all I could do was keep pushing forward, keep moving closer to my goal. I couldn't let them win. I wouldn't. I could feel my heart racing as I stood outside the door of Amelia's office, my hand resting on the cool metal of the doorknob. The sound of her voice echoed in my mind, the last time she'd asked me to step back, to stop interfering. The betrayal was still raw, and I wasn't sure what I was even doing here. But I couldn't walk away, not now, not when everything had led up to this moment. I pushed the door open, and she looked up from her desk, startled at first. But then her expression hardened into something I'd seen before, defensive, like she was ready to protect herself. I stepped inside, shutting the door behind me with a quiet click. "Liam," she said, her voice sounding almost forced. "What are you doing here?" "I think you know why I'm here," I replied, my voice steady, but my insides were a mess of anger and hurt. I took a few steps toward her, not giving her a chance to look away. "I know everything, Amelia." Her eyes flashed briefly, but she quickly masked it with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "What do you mean?" she asked, trying to sound casual, but I could hear the panic hiding beneath her words. "I know about Marcus. I know about everything you've done. I leaned against the desk, my gaze locking onto hers. How you used me, how you let him control you, how you walked away from me without a second thought. You've played me, just like you've played everyone else. Her breath hitched, and for the first time since I'd seen her, she looked vulnerable. But that wasn't enough to stop me. You think I didn't notice? I continued, my voice cold. How you'd smile at me one minute and the next, you were off in his office making deals behind my back? How you let him push me aside while you climbed your way up the ladder. She took a deep breath, standing up from her desk. Liam, you don't understand. You think I wanted to hurt you, but I had to do it. I had to get ahead. I had to take the opportunities that were in front of me. I couldn't just wait around forever. Her voice shook slightly, but she tried to hold it together. I didn't plan for it to happen this way. Didn't plan for it. Amelia, you didn't even try to fight for us. For me, you used me to get where you wanted. And once you had what you needed, you left me behind like I was nothing. The words cut through the air like a blade, and I could feel the weight of them settle in my chest. So don't tell me you didn't plan it. Don't tell me you didn't know exactly what you were doing. Her eyes shifted away from me, and I saw it, the guilt, the regret, just beneath the surface. But it wasn't enough. Not after everything. I never meant for it to happen this way, she said quietly. I never meant for you to get hurt. You were my friend, Liam. I never wanted to betray you. Betray me? I laughed bitterly, shaking my head. It wasn't just betrayal, Amelia. You shattered everything we had. And for what? For him? For power? You took everything I gave you, everything we built together, and turned it into something I couldn't even recognize. She flinched at my words, but she didn't apologize. She couldn't, not yet. I don't know what you want from me, Liam, she said, her voice cracking as she wiped away a tear. I did what I had to do to survive. This is what it took. And what about me? I asked, my voice low. What was I to you? A stepping stone? A pawn in your game? No, that's not it, she began, but I cut her off. Then what was it? Because everything I did, every sacrifice I made to help you, meant nothing to you once you got what you wanted. I could see the walls she'd built around herself start to crumble, but it wasn't enough. She wasn't ready to admit what she'd done. Not yet. She looked at me for a long moment, then shook her head. I never wanted to hurt you, she whispered. But I was scared, Liam. I thought I could handle it. I thought we could have both. But I was wrong. And now? I asked, my tone sharp. What happens now? You think a few words are going to fix this? You think I can just forget how you used me? How you took everything I gave you and then turned your back on me when it was convenient? I'm sorry, she whispered, the words barely audible. I never meant for this to happen. Sorry isn't enough anymore. My voice wavered, and for a second, I felt the weight of everything hit me all over again. I've been holding on to this anger, this need for revenge, but I realize now, it's not about that. It's not about getting back at you. It's about me. I'm done being your backup. Done being the one you come to when you need something. She stared at me, her eyes wide, her face pale. She was finally starting to see the damage she'd done, but it was too late. I'm not the person you thought I was anymore, I said, taking a step back, and I don't know if I can ever be that person again. I'm done, Amelia. With those words, I turned and walked away, leaving the past behind me for good. I didn't feel relief. I didn't feel victory. I just felt empty. The days after the confrontation felt like a blur. I didn't feel satisfaction or relief, just a quiet emptiness that gnawed at me. Exposing Amelia hadn't fixed anything. It hadn't made me feel better, and it hadn't made her feel worse. All it had done was pull back the curtain on a relationship that had been rotting for months. I was tired of being angry, tired of living in the past. I needed to move on, but a part of me still clung to what we had, to what I thought we could be. I spent the days after the confrontation trying to keep my mind busy. I threw myself into work, buried myself in projects, anything to avoid thinking about her, about us. But no matter how hard I tried, her voice would creep into my thoughts. Her words, the way she looked at me when she admitted everything. out in a low sigh. "What do you want, Amelia?" She paused, and for a moment I thought she was going to hang up. "I've been thinking. I don't know what I was doing, but I don't want to lose you. I made a huge mistake, Liam, and I need you to know I want to try again. If you'll let me." Her words hung in the air between us. She didn't ask for my forgiveness. She didn't make any promises. But something in the way she said it, the vulnerability in her voice, made me feel like I was hearing her for the first time in a long time. She wasn't just talking to me as someone she had used. She was talking to me as if she realized what she had done. She wasn't the same Amelia I had known before, at least not entirely. I closed my eyes, leaning against the wall. The silence on the line stretched between us, heavy with everything unspoken. The past, the betrayal, the lies, flashed through my mind, but so did the moments when we were happy. When she was still the woman I loved. I didn't know if I could ever trust her again, but the question wasn't about trust, not entirely. It was about whether we could build something new from the ashes of everything that had burned. "I don't need you to choose me, Amelia," I said, my voice steady, but my chest was tight. "I need you to choose us. To choose something real, something we can build together." Her breath caught on the other end, and I could almost hear her heart pounding in time with mine. "I do," she whispered. "I choose us. I'll choose you every day if you'll let me." The words landed between us like a fragile promise, something both beautiful and delicate, ready to break under the weight of everything we'd been through. But something inside me shifted. I couldn't keep holding on to the past. I couldn't keep holding her mistakes against her forever. If I wanted to move forward, if I wanted to rebuild, I had to let go. I had to trust her again if I ever could. "I don't need everything fixed today, Amelia," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "We move forward slowly. No more games. No more pretending. Just trust and honesty. That's all I need. And I can't promise I'll be perfect, but I'm willing to try. For us." She exhaled, and I could hear the relief in her breath. "I know," she said softly. "And I'll try too. I promise." A long silence followed, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that came with understanding, realizing that words had finally bridged the gap between us. That we could face what had happened without pretending it didn't matter. "I'll see you tomorrow?" I asked, my voice still uncertain. "Yeah, tomorrow," she replied. I hung up the phone, the weight of the conversation sinking into my chest. This was it. The decision had been made. We would rebuild, but I knew it wouldn't be easy. There were scars, deep ones that would take time to heal. But for the first time in a long while, I felt like I was on the right path. We both had to learn to forgive, to trust, and to be honest with each other. I sat down on the couch, my thoughts still swirling, but this time, it wasn't anger or resentment that filled me. It was a sense of quiet hope. We had a chance, a real chance, and maybe, just maybe, we could make it work. It's been a year of highs and lows, of rebuilding, of learning, of unlearning. Amelia and I have come a long way since that day, the day I thought we'd lost everything. But somehow, here we are, stronger, still standing. We walked side by side down the familiar street, our hands brushing occasionally, sending sparks through me, just like when we first met. I smiled to myself. It felt strange, this sense of peace, this quiet, steady rhythm between us. It didn't feel like I was walking in the shadow of betrayal anymore. It felt like I was walking beside her in something real. I stopped for a moment, standing in front of the cafe where we had our first date. It felt like so long ago, yet the memory was so fresh. I looked at Amelia, who had stopped too, her gaze following mine. "This place," I said, my voice soft, almost reverent. "It feels like a lifetime ago." She turned to me, her expression thoughtful. "It does, doesn't it? So much has happened since then." I nodded, my throat tightening just a little. I didn't know then what it would mean. I didn't know how much I would change, how much we would change. She reached out and took my hand in hers, her fingers warm against mine. "I didn't know either," she said, her voice steady. "I didn't know that we could come back from everything." I squeezed her hand, a feeling of gratitude welling up inside me. "We didn't just come back. We rebuilt, and we're stronger now than we've ever been." She smiled, her eyes reflecting something soft, something unspoken. "I'm glad you chose me, Liam, even after everything I did, even after everything that happened." I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time in a long time, I saw the woman I had fallen in love with. But this time, it wasn't just the woman from the past. This time, it was someone new. Someone stronger. Someone who had learned from her mistakes. Someone who wasn't afraid to face the truth, no matter how painful. I didn't just choose you, I said quietly, my voice barely above a whisper. I chose us. I chose this. I chose the future we're building together, not the past we left behind. She nodded, tears welling in her eyes. She wasn't crying in sadness. No, this was different. These were tears of relief, of release. I love you, Liam, she whispered, her voice breaking slightly. I love you too, I whispered back, my heart full. And we're going to be okay. We're going to be more than okay. We stood there for a while, just holding hands, our past and present tangled up in the space between us. The weight of everything that had happened hung over us, but it no longer controlled us. We had faced the worst, and we had made it through together. Finally, I pulled her a little closer, pressing my forehead gently against hers. We didn't choose easy, I said softly, my voice full of truth. But we chose each other. She smiled, her lips brushing mine in the softest kiss. And I'll choose you every day. We both knew that the road ahead wasn't going to be without its struggles. We had a long way to go, but we were no longer afraid. Together, we had faced the worst of the storm and emerged on the other side. Stronger, wiser, and more connected than ever before. I looked at her again, seeing the woman who had learned, who had grown, who had chosen love over fear. She wasn't perfect and neither was I, but we had something real. Something worth fighting for. And as we walked away from the cafe hand in hand, I realized something. What I once thought was the end was actually just the beginning. The beginning of a love that was built on trust, honesty, and the courage to face whatever came next, together.